Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Krashy, and today I wanted to do a commentary style video discussing my thoughts on Predecessor's competitive nights. Now, I think we have a competitive night coming up tonight, actually, and last week was the first iteration of it. One of the big things that I was looking forward to for the roadmap, or on the roadmap, announced for Season 2, and unfortunately hasn't quite hit the way that I was hoping, and I wanted to give my thoughts on it and ask some questions and then get some, community discussion and feedback going about competitive nights and even further into a little bit of a ranked discussion as well. So thank you so much for being here. Please drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for future Predecessor content, because I post videos just about every single day, and let's go ahead and dive into it. So Predecessor competitive night is the 5v5 exclusive, like one night a week kind of mini event, right? I think it runs for 2 to 3 hours. It's a great idea. It's a great idea for kind of bringing teams together, and really it incentivizes this like desire to play as a team. It breaks up the norm, right? It's something that's meant to be exclusive and additional to what's already happening in the game, and I think that that is inherently a good idea. But there's a couple of problems that I have specifically with it, and that's really going to be the main talking point of it. I think the first big issue that I have with it is that I'm not quite sure I see enough incentive to get on and play it. I don't believe, unless I'm crazy, I don't believe there's any form of reward for it. There's kind of like a leaderboard for it, but honestly, I haven't even clicked on it in game to see it, so I don't know if that carries from week to week, if it just is like a 1 week thing. I'm honestly even just a little bit ignorant to it, which I have to admit, because it's been so uninteresting to me that it hasn't even pulled my attention to actually even go click on it. So I kind of did watch a few streams of different players and teams playing it, and I have to admit another reason why I was rather uninterested is because I don't have a team. I'm not on a team. I didn't build a group for it, and it didn't seem interesting enough for me to go and do the work to do so. So I will definitely, bow a little bit there to say that, or give in a little bit there to say that there's a bit of ignorance coming from here to know exactly how it's running, but I can see enough of one specific detail to know that it's not something that I'm particularly interested in engaging with. So I think, okay, to wrap up that first point, or to kind of come full circle on that first point, the first thing that I'm uninterested about, or the thing that doesn't really sit well with me, is that I just don't really see the incentive to play it. I think that it, as just an event where you can get teams playing against each other, that's cool, but it feels a little forced without there being any form of reward or any form of kind of return for that time. And I'm not exactly sure what that should be, because I think that, whenever talking about like monetization and business model and things of that nature, you always want to have something that is mutual for the player and something that's mutual for the company. So I don't expect them to give away a bunch of free stuff, but maybe something, right? Like for the whole season of this is really like kind of poor, to be honest, but it's just the best thing I can think of. For the whole season of like Season 2, competing or performing well, even maybe, finishing in the top 10 or something, I don't know, for competitive nights could lead to like a profile icon. And then, maybe that icon is exclusive to that season, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's something that comes back, however so often or something. I don't know. Some little form of reward, some little form of something to kind of give a reason to hop on and play it. And that's the first thing that kind of, wasn't really interesting to me. It was just like, you could play it. It's like forced scrims without controlling who you're playing against, and then it has like a little mini leaderboard that I don't really think has much long-term implications or a ton of merit, right? Because I don't think there's anybody that's going out of their way to talk about how well their group did in competitive night, because it's just not the most competitive thing we have in the game. So the second and probably much more big issue that I have with competitive night is that it is casual draft, right? It's this blind, or not blind, it's like snake draft. It's the casual draft. I don't know even know how to categorize it. It's this like non-pick band, non-stop, not able to stop mirror matches. Gosh, I really don't know how to explain this draft mode. It's the draft mode we have in the game, which is not pick band draft, which is not competitive, right? I should have just started there. My bad for being awful at talking and just describing things. Yeah, it's not a competitive draft mode. And I think that the implication of competitive night is inherently meant to be competitive, right? And so if you have a mode that the entire like pull of it is just at minimum, because I don't think there's any rewards, and I don't think that the leaderboard for it has, too much merit or prestige behind it, if the entire point of it is to bring teams together to, you know, as like a little mini event to have them competing against each other, well, then at minimum you want it to feel competitive. And I think inherently, because there's no pick ban for it, it's just not competitive. Now, here's my thought on it. I think that because the competitive night came out, I'm excited about that. In theory, I'm excited that they were coming out with a feature, but I think that because the pick ban mode, the inevitable pick ban mode that will be in the game, is not ready, I think that it makes the competitive night coming out almost feel, and I hate to use this word, but I can't think of anything better at the moment, it almost feels like a desperate toss in for season 2, like a, hey, we want to give them something big or something exciting, and, you know, maybe they knew that it wasn't ready, or maybe they didn't think about this being a big issue, but they just kind of threw it in, right? Like, competitive nights are coming out, you know, it's launching with season 2. It was like one of their main selling points, I feel like, of the roadmap for season 2, but I do think that it is entirely fallen flat, and that's not a big issue, right? Like, for Ometa that are listening to this, and for anybody in the community that's listening to my thoughts on this, it's really not that big a deal, but I do think that we're experiencing a period of time where competitive nights just really don't mean anything, and I don't really think that I'm gonna engage with them at all. I don't think I'll probably play any of them until at minimum they have some kind of pick ban, so that way it's like good practice at minimum, but also, again, I think the incentive or lack thereof could potentially be a problem even after there's a pick ban draft. But yeah, so, you know, the implication of competitive, right? Competitive MOBAs is always that you're gonna have a pick ban. You're gonna have a way to, you know, control the meta and to, you know, infuse this game outside of the gameplay alone with strategy and play styles. And when you don't really have that, what you have is a meta that develops that becomes entirely stale, because people will find basically like a version of a team comp that is super, super strong, and they'll just run that, you know, maybe 2-3 tanks, you know, using whatever is the strongest carry at the time, or, you know, Gideon Howitzer every single game in mid lane. You get the point, right? Like, you will have teams that will find, like, they will solve that, like, mirror match meta, and that's not what you want. You don't ever want a solved mirror match meta, or even solved in like the way that like maybe there's like 2 or 3 comps in mirror match meta that are really, really strong. You don't really want that where you're facing up against, you know, other top players or other top teams going against the exact same thing, or even something similar, right? Like, even if it was just like Gideon v Gideon mid lane, well, that's going to swing the game a lot because it's a mirror match. So whoever kind of pulls ahead of that is going to have a lot of influence on that match. And so, yeah, it pulls away the strategy, pulls away some of that competitive integrity behind how MOBAs are played at a competitive level. And ultimately, I think it just leaves a lot to be desired for the competitive nights. So those are my overall thoughts on the competitive night. I think that it is a good idea inherently, but I think that the execution, mainly because of the lack of pick ban draft, has made it fall flat. And like I said, I don't think I'll engage with it at all. I was hoping that it would have been something really cool that I could, you know, build a group for, even just for content, and see if we can get some wins, and, you know, post some videos about, you know, oh, we went blah 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 on competitive night, or this was crazy game from competitive night, right? Like, to really use it as a tagline, as a marketing tool for content and for the game. But I do think that it just feels like it was kind of thrown into season 2 prematurely before any version of a pick ban was made, and ultimately doesn't feel that competitive. So I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. Hopeful for the future, obviously. I think that, oh yeah, my mini discussion about the future of ranked, I'm like positive that solo duo queue, I don't remember if they committed to this or not, so somebody remind me, it's going to have pick ban, so I'm not like worried about the future of pick ban. It just feels like one of those things that wasn't ready yet, but they wanted to push competitive nights out. But I think that those two things, they should have came at the same time, right? Like, I think that competitive night should always be pick ban draft, and I think that solo duo queue needs to be pick ban draft. Like, I don't think there's really any room for it not to be, so that's why I feel like it fell so flat. So thank you so much for listening. Like I said, drop a like on the video, subscribe for future Predecessor content. As always, be sure to be kind to one another, tell someone you love them, and I'll see you on the next video.